the Mood Food Podcast. Welcome to the Mood Food Podcast, Dr. Ram. What are you in the mood for today?
Let's see. How about some Italian deli?
Yeah, that's delicious. And we visited the Italian kitchen to taste some of the really good Sicilian Italian food.
Yeah, I was very surprised that there was a difference in the deli foods in Italy from the north to the south.
Yeah, and so, talking to Dom was really, really inspiring, and he's so knowledgeable about everything, that he serves up in his restaurant. What did you think?
He was like a talking encyclopedia on Sicilian food. He was amazingly interesting, engaging, and factual, which I found fascinating.
He graduated with marketing, and he ended up in food with his father, who had run like 40 different restaurants and stores. He started his business in, I think, 2011, if I'm not wrong, or
Yes.
2013. I think, 2013.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he's been in it, and his mom cooks. He has a few recipes from his mom, I think, and his dad taught him the business. Let's start with your name.
I'm Dominic. So I'm Dominic Geraci, Jr., son of Dominic Sr., who opened this with me, Italian Kitchen. We opened 13 years ago. Oh, this is our 13th year now. 2012, September of 2012. Thank you. Is when we first opened this one.
That's fantastic. So you opened it with your dad?
My father, Dominic Sr. Yep.
That's fantastic. And your mom's involved in the
She's involved. She's involved in all the businesses. So my father's been doing this, the food industry. He's been in the food business since the 60s, early 60s or so. But yeah, she's been with him since they got married. I wasn't there. Can't tell you when. But they've been together. She's kind of like the back of the house. She runs the back. Although, in the very beginning, it's a lot of her recipes too. So she was much more involved back then as far as like recipes and hands-on. And as they grew the business, now she's more behind the scenes. So she is involved as well.
Did she help you set up the menu?
Oh, yeah. So actually, my Uncle Guy, God rest his soul, who's not with us anymore, he was a world-renowned chef. He worked all over the world.
Okay.
He worked in Italy. He had a couple restaurants in New York. He was down in Florida. So he helped us set up the menu. He was retired when we opened. And what he would do is anytime my father opened a new deli, pizzeria, restaurant, he's actually my mother's brother, but he would come in and kind of help us create the menu and figure out the recipes and teach the staff. So my father was more of the business side of things.
Right.
He would negotiate your lease or your whatever, your finance deal. He would get your vendors. Exactly. He would put all that together.
Right.
And then even so, he would have a say also on the menus, a very heavy influence.
Yeah.
But it was my Uncle Guy who taught the ground level and like showed the team how to do the stuff and how to break down an animal or butcher something or, how to take care of your sauces and stuff like that, like understand the food side of it. So there is a good amount. For example, our best-selling dish is our penne alla vodka.
Okay.
It's his penne alla vodka.
Right.
It's not my father's recipe. It's not my mother's. That one's his.
Yes.
So it's still.
I can attest to it that it's really, really good.
Thank you.
So penne?
Say it again.
What is it?
So penne is the cut of pasta, but it's the vodka sauce, which actually is like blasphemy in Italy. It's not a real dish. It's not a real dish in Italy, but an Italian American, which is its whole other, right? There's traditions and there's the Italian American lifestyle. It's a very popular dish that obviously has vodka, but small component. It has the base of it starts with either guanciale or pancetta. Pancetta being like a Italian bacon.
Right.
Guanciale is the pig jowl. Good amount of fat, and then what you do is you break that down. I can't give you the whole recipe, but you break that down. There's some onions, and then there's a tomato base made like our sauce, our tomato sauce, and then heavy cream. So it's a lot of flavor. because you take your 8-hour sauce that you made the day before and let it rest. And then from there you build and you break down your pancetta and your onions and add in your heavy cream. This is a family-owned business. My father and I started this together. I would love to work with all of my children, both my daughters and my son, or even one of them. If one of them said, hey, I want to do this,
Right.
that.
And I think the least of it is, at least they'll get in the kitchen and cook for themselves.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Learn the recipes
And keep the tradition.
yes, yeah. That's your. Yeah, I agree. That'd be really nice. As a father, as a businessman, as someone who really loves their heritage and where they're from, that'd be really cool.
Is there a regional influence on the food that you make here?
So we're Sicilian. Thank you. Can you grab me a flat dish for this as well? We're Sicilian. My mother and father are 100% Sicilian. In fact, I'm obviously 100% Sicilian, but so is my wife. So my children are 100% Sicilian. So obviously, a lot of our influence comes from Sicily, but also with like the American Italian side of it too.
Right.
Thank you. So yes, it would be, like for example, rice balls are Sicilian.
Right.
Caponata is a Sicilian southern Italian dish, which I think you guys are really gonna like. Eggplant. Have you had that before? I feel like I may have
You have made it.
made it for you once. Now I get it in these awesome little cans because you can just eat it to go. But it's still it's a lot of work to make, but we still make it ourselves as well.
Look at that.
So we roast it, roasted eggplant, peppers, little onion. Then we blend it with like our tomato sauce, a little bit of sugar, adds a little bit of sweetness. Roasted tomatoes, and then we put olives, capers, and chop like a loose chop, and you eat it like a dip. We'll get some crusty bread in there.
Yeah, I can
So
smell
good.
those ingredients.
And good for you, like we were talking about.
Is
Like
that
it's good for
typically
you.
Sicilian?
Yeah, that's a
You
Sicilian
don't
dish. So
see that in other parts of Italy. Maybe not.
no, not really. I mean, it's also like even arancini rice balls have been so popular now,
Right.
right? It's been popular. That's so with technology.
Become the thing now.
But they're doing it. There's different ones. Even in Sicily,
Yeah.
you can get like dessert ones where they put like
Yes.
raisins in it, or they'll put like it's almost like a rice pudding at that point.
Right.
They make it, but they'll put like little chocolate chips in it. So,
Yeah.
and in America, like our biggest seller for the rice balls, besides the traditional, when we do caterings, we do little like prosciutto and truffle. Everyone loves prosciutto. Everyone loves truffle. Put the two together.
Right.
Not traditional at all.
Yeah. What's the value of food? What's the value of traditional food, essentially, to each person? Because your body is built, your genetics are built on the food that
Yeah.
you've consumed, your grandma's consumed.
Mhm.
So this is like an exploration for us.
I like that.
Talking to different people about their traditions, where they come from, and what their food means to them.
And much of it has come down through generations. Your mother, grandmother, their and
Recipes, traditions, yeah.
all of that is so fascinating because it was around what was available.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's unfortunate that now there's food that's frozen in a can and it provides convenience, but at what cost?
And I think that's the reminder I want to kind of put out to everybody that health is not expensive.
Correct.
You know what? I agree with that, but I also have to say I feel like sometimes they disguise it as expensive. Does that make sense?
I agree with you because everything that looks fancy looks nice and looks healthful, while everything that's not fancy doesn't. But
Yeah.
food should be simple. It shouldn't be.
It's simply like why is it inexpensive to get I don't want to say the names, but a fast food,
McDonald's.
you get a burger or something for $3. People say I can't cook anything. I can't cook something for $3, but you'd be surprised if you go to the supermarket
Right.
and meal prep and just get some chicken, a little bit of rice, or get some pasta, and get some,
Correct.
a little bit of ground beef,
Box of pasta is 99 cents.
There you go.
and a box will
tomatoes,
feed you several
garlic.
meals. It's not like it's one meal.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
Yeah.
broccoli. What does broccoli cost you? You can make a nice pasta with broccoli, garlic, and olive oil, and it's healthy. So I have 2 4-year-olds and a 2-year-old who's about to be 3 next month. So it's a busy household, especially in the
Very busy
morning,
household.
getting them ready and stuff. We don't really have time for breakfast. We make sure they have their breakfast, but for us, it's usually a shot of espresso or a cup of coffee, but it's more like lunch. Even owning
Yeah.
this and working here,
Yeah.
I'll go home sometimes,
You make
or
the time to go spend that lunch?
Because I can't have dinner usually with them.
Okay.
You know, dinner is very busy here.
Right.
So I'll take lunch though. And it's kind of something that was passed down from the generations. It's still like I wish I could take a nap and have my siesta. And,
Well, it's just a tradition.
yeah, it's a tradition, but it's something that
Well, it's
I
not
hope my
really
children.
looked upon as a good thing in America, but why is it a bad thing? It's a really good thing. You know, America wants you to work 24 hours. We managed to work about 12. So how are you going to cook, clean, take care of your kids, and work 12 hours?
Yeah.
Well,
So
I
you end up-
think the Italian concept of there's a siesta,
Oh yeah.
you know.
Midday, take a break.
Yes.
Well, you mentioned Sardinia. You know,
Yes.
do you know about the blue zones? I'm sure you guys have
Yes,
discussed.
Yes.
So Sardinia's a blue zone. They have how do you say centurions? They live
Yes,
100 years.
yes.
So- amazing. But what is it? So they've been studying. Have you guys looked into it? There's
Yes.
like 3 major factors, and they have bullet points. There's like 6, 7, 8 factors. 3 major factors. One being family first. So they say that takes away the stress, right? You constantly surround yourself with people who are like-minded. Not family in the sense like blood, but obviously it starts there
Right.
because you have your traditions. Your mother and your father and yourself and your sister and will have the same values for the most part, right? If you come from the same household. So then that takes away stress because you all are like-minded. You have the same goals, you have the same ideas. So that alleviates stress. Where in the American lifestyle, mostly it's friends or business associates.
Correct.
Because where do we spend most of our time? Like you said,
Yes.
we manage to work 10, 12, 13 hours a day, 5, 6, 7 days a week. So they become your life. Like I make jokes where this is my work husband or my work wife.
Correct.
Because I spend more hours in a dime. And I tell my employees, for example, I hire on personality
Absolutely.
rather than experience because I could teach you the recipe. Repetition, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But I can't teach you how to get along
Get
with
along
everybody
with
else.
everybody.
Still practice
How
on a
important
daily.
are the ingredients?
Very important. That makes the whole dish. That makes the menu. That makes us different, right? That makes us stand out. And not against the competition, but it's the reason I have a business. Otherwise,
Right.
does that make sense? Like I'm just cooking at home, which the ingredients are still very important, but why do I have a business? Because you have recipes. Anybody could have recipes. It's 2025. You could go on the internet and
Right.
look up any celebrity chef's recipe and you can recreate it,
Do
Yeah.
that,
right? But are you putting in the same time and effort to cultivate that recipe and make it your own? Or is it a recipe that you just looked up on the internet, or is it something that's been passed down? And it's the simple ones that go the furthest
Yeah.
with the simple ingredients. We're not, like I said, do we offer, for example, like the arancini with prosciutto and black
Yeah.
truffle? Yes. And people love it. But more traditional, the most popular traditional size ones that we sell every day, that we have every day, are the traditional ones with the simple ingredients.
Right.
Some ground beef, a little bit of seasoning, our 8-hour sauce, like our daily sauce, and cheese. It's the simple ingredients.
How about that special recipe that his uncle taught him?
Right. The penne with vodka sauce.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
which
yes.
he said wasn't Italian at all. it's a version of something that was created in the U.S.
That's
So-
true. That's
so-
true. So here, you can take these generational things and create something for now.
Right. So it's like literally pivoting and creating something for, if you're Italian and you've migrated to the US and you've been here, long enough, you create your own food. You fuse things and you create your own version of sauces for whatever, the pasta or dishes even.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it was interesting to talk to him and learn about his family, his ways of doing things, how they went across generations. They still brought their culture with them. They still kind of do the things that his parents used to do back in Italy. It was, this is kind of what I really want to, talk about is how food connects people through generations.
Correct.
You see it in all the families that are, still connected with their traditions, their generations, and their kids are growing up that way too.
That's true, because unless we share it, and our grandparents and our great grandparents, and that information comes down through the generations,
Right.
it has a special value.
Right, right. And also, just practicing good old traditions that keep everybody connected. So when I'm talking about that is, and I've seen many YouTube videos, about, they're based in Italy, but how people have their farms, they're growing tomatoes, and the grandmas, then organize this little thing when the tomatoes are harvested. They make their sauces and they can them to use it throughout the season.
Correct.
When the tomatoes are not available anymore.
Right.
So they still have access to the sauce to be able to use in their food.
Correct.
And they, kind of can and put away, preserve them. I think tons, and then I think Dom said, they also did that over here.
Correct.
With their grandparents.
Correct.
So the whole family.
That tradition continues.
Right. So his whole family kind of got together when they did that, made the sauce with their grandparents.
It's a family thing.
Right.
And all that good energy goes into that tomato sauce.
Yeah.
Which cooks for a long time.
Right. Right. So they had all their cousins come through. So the whole family is kind of getting together and making an effort. So they made over 1,000 pounds of sauce, is what he
I
said.
cannot believe it when he said that. He said, oh my goodness, you were in the kitchen forever.
And the kids were part of it, so everybody had a little bit of work that went into making that sauce.
And that's how the stories continue.
Right.
Because everybody is showing or sharing their different values or stories that they grew up with.
Right. Right. And it's what a sauce. Like, what a sauce, you have your grandma there, you have your parents there, you have yourself, and you have kids. 4 different generations.
Correct.
Giving a little bit of themselves.
Right.
To make that sauce.
Correct. Yeah.
Look at that.
This was made in September. Sits right there on the shelf. Still good. It's ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay? This is simple. This is a tradition that I'm really proud that we still do.
Yes.
So
Correct.
I thought, I'm not gonna lie, I thought everybody did this. Because I grew up in a predominantly Sicilian, Italian neighborhood.
Right.
Down in Queens. It was a lot of Italians, a lot of Sicilians. So we did this every summer. Wait till the tomatoes are ripe. When we had space, we would grow our own.
Right.
But most often we'd go to upstate New York, and believe it or not, these I have 2 batches, and I'll show you the difference.
Yeah.
One is grown here in the States.
Okay.
One is grown in Italy. Real San Marzano tomatoes that we had imported. I'm showing you right now the San Marzano one.
Taste difference.
I thought everyone did this.
Yeah.
And we used to do it, right? And instead of stacking it up in my house, I would just leave it here. It's a conversation piece. People say, what's that? Plus I have all the room here.
Right.
And I said, oh, it's just my annual sauce. They didn't even, I thought they would just know what annual sauce was. And they said, what's your annual sauce? What do you mean? It's the annual tomatoes that you just get yourself fresh, harvested tomatoes.
Right.
It's just tomatoes, olive oil, a pinch of salt. You can see the basil
That's
floating
all,
around there, and that's it. So this is your mother's sauce that you would start. So we started doing this because customers asked about it. And I said, oh, no, it's not for sale. That's my...
That's your...
And they're like, no, I get it. Everything here is yours. Can I buy it? I said, no. This is all for sale. That's not. This is like, it's not mine. It's my wife's. Put it that way. I'm not. So they asked if we could teach them. And now we do a class twice a year. August, we do usually the last week of August, first week of September is when the tomatoes are ripe. And it'll change a little bit depending on the season.
Right.
Yeah. And it makes a huge difference. So
Huge
talking about ingredients, you want to go to the motherland for stuff like that, right? And it all plays a role. So you have the soil, the sun, the hydration levels, everything matters. Everything plays a role. But now, so I'm getting off topic. This is a tradition that I grew up with. Every summer I would look forward to it. Not just because the food element of it, but family comes into play.
Absolutely.
Me and my cousins getting together. We always went to the matriarch's house, so we'd go to my mother's house,
Right.
my grandmother's house, and everyone had a job. They didn't care how young or how old you were. If you didn't know the recipe or understand the food side of it, if you're, let's say, 8 years old, or wash the basil.
Right.
Fresh basil coming, I mean, crates of it. We made hundreds of jars, thousands of jars.
Right.
You sit there, pluck the basil,
So the whole family can have some.
everybody has a job.
Everybody's
And yeah, and we would make a couple hundred. Everyone takes home, 100 jars, or every family, because I'm one of 5. I have 4
Right.
siblings, and my parents, so there's 7 of us in a house. These jars, that's why we started making these big ones,
Yeah.
because these little ones wouldn't do anything. If we cook pasta, we need at least 2 of these, if not sometimes 3.
That's correct.
So we would just take out the big one. But simple, but it was fun. It was a whole day, sometimes 2 days. We'd sleep there, wake up early, 5 o'clock in the morning, get up, wash the basil, who's making breakfast, and then
What a
we'd make
beautiful
fresh pasta.
tradition.
Such a cool tradition.
And it's
I also noticed you also
pizza
have-
officer.
Okay.
You have the vegetables.
Yes. Well, a lot of pickling.
Yes.
So we still do that in my family too. More on my wife's side, I'll admit. My wife's side, excuse me, they still do. My mother-in-law does a great pickled eggplant that we unfortunately don't see as much in my side of the family, just because obviously as you get older and life, business,
Right,
work gets in the
right.
way, they've managed to still hold on to some of those traditions. So pickling of the vegetables, any vegetable, whatever you get
So
your
is it
hands
with,
on.
With salt and vinegar?
Yeah.
Salt
So
and
you get
vinegar?
well, she makes up her own vinegar mixtures, and there's different spices you can do. Fresh garlic in there. She does a lot of spicy. She'll throw like spicy peppers in there. So it's really cool. But
So the
that goes
spicy
back.
Stuff happens in the southern part of Italy,
Yeah.
not in the northern.
No. But like traditionally, you'll see more spice like in Calabrian dishes.
Right.
Calabria towards the end,
Yes.
right? I say Calabrese are Sicilians who didn't learn how to swim. They couldn't get across the water, But they have a lot of spice. But there is a good influence. Sicily's not as spicy, but there is a good amount of
Right.
spice. And that's why I say bolder flavor, seasoning. But the pickling, from what I understand, the way I was raised was just living off of the land.
Correct.
What you have to make it last. Same thing like jarring your
Right,
sauce.
right.
You take the tomatoes when they're in season.
Right.
You want a nice bowl of pasta on
Yeah.
Christmas or whatever, middle of winter.
Right.
This is when you can get it.
Yeah. Instead of going and buying tomatoes out of season.
Exactly. And the same thing with your vegetables, so you can have it. Obviously, it's going to change the flavor, the texture, and everything of it. But yeah, that's where that still comes from. And it's cool that they still do it on her side. I'm still learning the pickling myself,
Right.
but that's where a lot of that comes from.
And also you have a lot of olives
Oh yeah.
in
Italy, yeah.
cuisine.
So I think that's,
Well, in Sicily, too,
that's
there's a
the
lot of-
controversial topic. Olives and olive oil. Greece says ours is the best. Italy says
They
ours
could
is
say
the
that,
best.
but I think Sicily has the best. I think Sicily's been underrated for a long time. It just hasn't been the conversation, right? You think Italy, what do you think? If I say Italy, what do you think right off the bat?
Rome.
Done. Rome. Or you think Venice, or you think, nobody
Right,
thinks.
right.
Sicily's
Florence.
it's Florence,
Milan.
Tuscany.
Yeah.
Italy's like 10 on the list. Milan, the fashion, everyone wants.
Right.
Nobody thinks about Sicily.
Sicily.
Sicily's got great wine. Actually, my father comes from,
A wine.
yeah, so he grew up on vineyards, and when he came to America,
cool.
that was, yeah. So like my father's father, my great-grandfather, was importing wine back in the Great Depression. He had boats,
Incredible.
yeah, he was
Yeah.
great businessman, but it was also not a very lucrative business because Sicilian wine, you
I
know?
see. So the
Sicilian wine was,
labeling, the branding is more.
oh yeah, nobody wanted to. Now, all of a sudden, Sicilian wine. I was talking to who was it? Was it Moe's? We had a mozzarella party.
Right.
Yeah, so we have some. These actually, we have figs and apricots. But I will tell you, these are not Italian.
Okay.
I gotta. But you guys, and that's the thing. You gotta give respect where respect's due. Those are Turkish figs and apricots. They have the best. They're soft, ton of flavor, never too dry. Like they're perfect. So them I'll give
That
it.
would be sort of something you would eat on a
Oh yeah, we serve it.
Special
It's on our
occasion
menu.
or-
No, every day. That's like,
on a traditional family.
oh yeah,
would have
that'll
that.
be like. So if my father came over for dinner. What's today? Thursday. He was over for dinner Tuesday, and I made a plate like this before we had dinner. Just something while my wife was finishing up dinner. I took out a couple cheeses, grabbed a stick of salami or supersat, sliced it up, and that's what we nibbled on.
Do you put it on bread or just eat it the way?
No, usually we'll have like a crusty bread, yesterday's bread. You'll take yesterday's bread, slice it up, throw a little olive oil on it, gets a little body to it, a little crunch, and put that on the side. You know, it's Americans' version of cheese and crackers.
Better.
Yeah. You could have your cheddar and your Ritz, or you could have day old semolina bread that added a little bit of crunch. And, yeah, it's real, manufactured. I don't like to say fake, but there's real, then there's manufactured.
Right.
So this is real stuff, real ingredients. This is natural. We don't have chicken finger kids where they go out and they're like, I just want chicken fingers. No. That might happen once in a blue where it's like, look, just eat whatever. If you'll eat a chicken finger, I'll give it to you. But my kids will eat anything. They'll try anything.
So that's the idea,
They've had
right?
anchovies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think
Give them a flavor for it from when they were
exactly.
young.
They've been
Now
eating
they
it.
know to expect different things.
Exactly.
As opposed to just maybe mac and cheese and
Exactly.
chicken
And
fingers.
listen, they'll tell you when they don't like something, but the idea is they're open to trying different
Yeah.
things, which is really cool.
If you had your wish,
Yeah,
you'd go back to Sicily.
in a heartbeat. If I could, I'll admit, my wife and I have looked up properties. It was very serious, especially when COVID happened, because
Oh, I know.
it was a really weird time, right? For everyone.
Beautiful blue water.
Oh my God. And just like you start to envision yourself, we're like, wait, I'm locked down, I'm in the house, imagine being locked down in Sicily, Sardinia, like it doesn't have to be just Sicily. Imagine being locked down. Oh my God, what am I locked down in? Oh, the beaches and the crystal clear water and the fresh fish and seafood. Oh, what a hard life. Like, and it is a hard, I'm not trying to discount. It's not the easiest life, I get it. Work is hard there, right? There's no work. But in a perfect world, yeah, that would be, you know, it still is. I'm not saying I'm giving up on that.
Right.
I talked to my wife the other day and I said, maybe we could do like, eventually we get to the point where we could do half
Winter
there.
in Sicily.
We do half there and half here. She's like, well, like I said, the kids are 4 and 3. She goes, what are you gonna do? You gotta wait till after high school? I said, well, maybe we just do this now. Maybe.
Very rich in love and stories and values and
Right.
taste.
Right. And then you have to get along with the people that you don't want to really, but you have to. Because, you know, that's where you learn to have conversations that are hard and continue to do things, whether you know, kind of come to a compromise in opinions and be able to exist
How to get along
together. So I think big families teach you that.
That is correct.
I wish that was, you know, spread out throughout all the countries. So all the countries would be able to agree on.
It's a good wish.
They would agree to disagree on things.
Correct.
You know, I
Correct.
would put it that way. But it was kind of cool to kind of feel that coming through from Dom, because he was raised in the U.S. He was born and raised in the U.S.
Correct.
But he still carried traditions from his family that they brought with them
Correct.
from Italy. So it was kind of cool to understand how things went on in his family. I think his wife was Sicilian, and his food also bears the stamp of those traditions.
Correct.
So when you eat at his restaurant, he's cooking food with the same love that is put into just making the sauce.
That's true.
And so you know the food's going to be good.
And he talks about it with great pride.
Correct. And so the other thing he does is teach classes. So he teaches how to make mozzarella.
Yes. I'm joining.
He's starting, I think he also runs little classes or sessions for pizza making. So whether it's with kids or, you know, corporates or whatever it is for team building. And also now he's going to start pasta making classes. He also did say he had 2 classes to show people how to can the tomato
Oh,
sauce.
right. That's very valuable.
Yeah. And he said he thought everybody did it, but realized that doesn't happen with each and every person.
Well, I think the time has come for us to learn these things.
Yes.
And sort of go from the farm to the table kind of idea.
Correct.
So that we have it all ready to go, whether we keep a special area in our basement or a cool place to preserve these things and use them as we need.
So I think that's what old traditions teach us, sustainability.
Correct.
So when we consider having refrigerators and things that could hold our foods and keep it for days and days, people in the old times figured out a way without working,
Refrigeration, yeah.
with having this refrigerator technology. And they kind of use their basements
Correct.
to do that, to use it as a cooler or preserve foods in a way that they could kind of use throughout the
Eventually,
generations.
yes.
Which brings us to fermented foods.
That is correct. Because
Right?
they can last longer.
They can last longer. So I think we talked about fermented foods in our Indian tradition.
Correct.
And then when we talked to Dom, he was talking about how they ferment foods as well. And they use it in serving, as condiments or different.
They were doing that with vegetables. Remember, he showed us a whole plate of vegetables,
Right.
which were
It's like cauliflower,
Yes.
carrots, all kind of preserved in a little bit of vinegar.
correct.
And they
Salt
use
and vinegar,
that.
the good old salt and vinegar.
Right. And it tastes good. So
Yummy.
the Calabrian chilies. Oh, now my mouth is watering.
She's making me hungry now.
So anyway, so it's I think that's kind of what it is. I think that is special. That's a special way of bringing different generations together.
Correct.
Because how do you bond a generation that's always on their phones and getting information at their fingertips? Well, generations that didn't have that, but still kind of existed, without all of that. So how do you connect a generation that's full of information with another generation that's full of information, but from their experiences, not from being on the phone?
That's true.
So
That's true.
very different ways of kind of growing
Well,
up.
I think, today's age, we've become so isolated because we're so into the social media or the phone or the video games or whatever. And we've lost that social aspect, which food brings us together.
Correct.
you know?
Correct.
And I think that's what I'm hoping that we can share that information
Right.
with the people who watch this podcast, because it's all about gatherings, about the different generations, about learning,
Right.
the experiences they had versus what we're going through,
Right.
and our future generations would go through.
Right.
We need to keep that alive and healthy.
Correct. So when you're collecting information sitting on your phone, you're sitting by yourself.
Correct.
When you're collecting information at the table with a table full of food, sitting with different generations, you're collecting information in the company of others,
Correct.
which is from different generations,
Right.
and learning to interact
Correct.
in a social way that you cannot otherwise. If you were just to interact with your friends, you're just interacting with one generation. So what you're talking, what you're saying is all right there at the same mental
And it's
level.
also modified for this generation. That's why they will never grow.
Yeah.
Unless you learn from the other generations who are older,
Right.
have been in the fields, have been
Right.
harvesting these things versus just harvesting your food from the refrigerator, which was cooked by somebody somewhere to
Right.
be microwaved. So
Right.
we've not learned anything.
Correct. So you're basically eating TV dinners frozen as opposed to knowing where your food is actually coming from.
Correct.
So that's what you learn when you're sitting at a
and
table.
I feel sad because when you really look at the labels of these TV dinners, it says vitamin D added, vitamin A added. Why are you adding all these things? Why can't we get it fresh?
Fresh.
So it's sort of ironical that we're trying to eat healthy, but we're getting it through artificial means.
Right, and that shouldn't be the case because food has everything that you need, so we don't need to add stuff to it. But
Correct.
we don't realize that we just want quick fixes, and we just don't think about what we're really consuming
Right.
many a times.
I
There are
always say to my patients, read the label. If you cannot pronounce it, don't get it.
true. You don't know what you're consuming.
You don't know what chemical that is, or what dye it is, or what preservative they've used.
How it's prepared,
Right.
what process it went through.
Right.
So it's processed food as opposed to fresh food.
There you go.
So when you go to your grandma, you don't need processed food. She's cooking food made from real ingredients just before you have arrived.
Right. Right.
So you and if you have the privilege, you're cooking it with your grandma.
Correct.
So you learn old recipes.
Right.
You learn old traditions.
I want to bring your attention to the idea of looking, for example, at orange juice.
Right.
And orange juice says freshly squeezed, but it's in a cardboard box. And freshly squeezed when?
Right.
And
Right.
then they say pasteurized, which means it's been cooked,
Correct.
which means all the nutrients have been cooked out of it.
Right.
And then they say, oh, and vitamin D added and vitamin A added and fortified by the vitamins.
Right.
You're just getting sugar water and fortified vitamins in the water. Where's the real juice?
Right. And while real oranges have all those things
Yes.
that you really don't need to add.
Right.
So it comes with vitamin C.
Correct. I just say get a juicer and juice it yourself.
Yeah. Make it fresh.
Make it fresh. Make it a whole food.
Correct. Correct. Instead of getting a boxed version
Correct.
of a juice, take the time to juice it for yourself.
Yeah, and that's why the whole concept of fast food is how are we keeping the nutrients and the value of the food, and yet it's quick and easy to
Right.
eat and digestible.
Right.
That's the idea.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I think when when we're looking at Italian food, I think a lot goes into, cooking their foods and keeping it that way. I think I would think most Italian families do cook, fresh food.
They take pride in it.
They take pride in it.
That's the most important thing.
Right. Right.
And what's the word that they use, which it's not a deli, but in Italy they call it,
Salumerias.
there you go. And that's what is fresh.
Yeah. Yeah. So, if they're making their sausages or they're curing meat or, even preserving it and it's available, even fresh meat, in their salumerias,
Yes.
it's their way of bringing it into a deli today.
Yeah.
Right? So he did talk about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to expand on, how the delis came about.
Well, the word deli is really a German word, delicatessen.
Right.
But coming to the United States, it became a deli.
Correct.
And so you'll have different kinds of delis,
Yep.
There's Jewish deli, there's Italian deli, I'm sure there are different types of delis
Right.
that cater to the taste of that area or region
Correct.
that they come from.
Correct. So Italian delis, generally you'll find pastas, their meats,
The cured meats,
meatballs,
yeah. What's that rice round thing that he had?
the arancinis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that
Yeah,
was
So
interesting.
delicious.
Mm.
And so they also bring from, the olive oils and
Oh, yes.
the canned tomatoes coming from Pompeii, which is their region, or, the San Marzano tomatoes, essentially.
Yes.
They take so much pride in that because of the soil that those tomatoes are grown in, because of the volcano
Correct.
ash being part of the soil, and then it flavors the tomatoes, so it's kind of special.
Definitely.
way.
Definitely. You can taste the difference. And,
Yes.
and talking about the oil, I think that's also interesting.
Right.
It's a monosaturated fat, which is fine. It's a good oil, but it's cold press
Yeah.
and they say cold pressed virgin, which means that the nutrients of that olive is still there.
Right.
You know, the polyphenols and other nutrients are alive.
Right.
Versus if you kill it to the point that it's looking
It's
clear
processed.
and doesn't look nice and green or a deep yellow
Right.
that it should be.
So I think that's, I just kind of want to bring it to the attention of our audiences. When you have cold pressed olive oil, it kind of is greenish in color.
Correct.
And then as you keep pressing the oil, it goes into yellow and then clear. So it's that the ultimately, highly processed olive oils are clear in color.
Correct.
While the freshly just cold pressed are more greenish.
Right.
And the flavors of those oils are different because of the different soils those
The olives
are grown in.
Correct. The
So
olive trees, yeah.
Right. So Dom brought to our attention how Sicily had the best
Of course.
olive trees. So that's a conversation that, the Greeks say ours are best, the Spanish say ours are best, and the Italians say,
Well, it's the best for that region.
and right, right. But he did explain how in Sicily, where he lived, it was close to a volcano. So again, the soil had, the ash, the effect of that ash.
The richness of the humic soil is called humic acid soil,
And so,
which is also rich in microbiomes
interesting.
as it feeds the microbiomes.
Okay.
It's a prebiotic
Okay.
versus a probiotic.
Interesting. So prevention as opposed to cure.
Correct. Correct.
So the way I see it, that's the difference.
Yes. And also the interesting thing about olive oil is it burns quickly. So
Right.
you have to always cook it in a low flame. Otherwise, you will burn the oil and kill all the nutrients.
Right.
So
right.
just FYI, when you're cooking with olive oil, cook it in a low flame. And whether you're sorting or
Sautéing
sauteing
it.
things or
Yeah.
cooking things with olive oil.
Right. I think that also brings me to a point where, the Rastafarians will cook their vegetables at a low flame to maintain the nutrients and the goodness of the food.
Correct.
So I think in general, if it is slow cooked food, it's better for you.
Correct.
But in today's day and age where we're rushing from one to the other, we need to pay attention how we're cooking our food.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right. So it's we could do a quick meal, but while paying attention to maybe, not increasing the temperature too high when we are using olive
Correct.
oil.
Well, I call it mindful cooking. You know, just so you're paying attention.
Right.
You're working with what you know and creating a food that is beautifully presented.
Right.
Because, as I've probably said to you, digestion doesn't start in the stomach. It
Correct.
starts in the thought.
Correct.
And how you're going to prepare the food, how you do prepare the food, how you can smell the ingredients as you're cooking it, and then you present it. So all your senses are heightened. And you're ready to digest that food.
Correct. So it kind of creates the acids in your stomach before you're eating the food. So
Correct.
your digestion is so much.
It's primed. It's primed to receive.
Correct.
And that's important. Like, even when you go to a restaurant, they don't just dish the food out. The good ones don't dish it out. They allow you to smell the food. You're wondering what other people are eating, and
Right.
you're just curious, and it just primes you to eat,
Right.
rather than something that you put in a microwave or just
Right.
put it right in front of you, or even very cold food. Sometimes cold food is fine, but on the other hand, if it's room temperature, it's
Right.
so much better in digesting it.
Okay. Yeah, and to me, I feel like, those smells that you kind of grow up with
Yes.
coming from your kitchen
Yes.
is what becomes your nostalgia
Yes.
when you grow up.
Correct.
And you kind of crave those smells because that brings back memories
Yes.
of being with your family,
Correct.
creating that warmth. And, just on a sad day, If you cook a meal that your grandma used to cook, you just feel like a warm hug.
Yes. Yes.
It's so nice. It's so nice. That's what food does for you.
And that's mood food for you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's your mood food for you.
Yes.
So that's an amazing feeling.
It is. It is very, it's like you've been hugged.
Correct.
Like a beautiful big hug.
So not only are you eating good food, you're getting the nutrition,
Yes.
and you're getting a warm hug from your grandma.
There you go. There you go. You can't ask for anything better.
So I think that's the value of Italian food. I want to share a little story, about. I'm going to pull out this cooking book.
Yes.
So I'm going to put it out here so you can see it. The Instagram handle is Seps. The chef is, the person who's cooking is Giuseppe Federici. And he's, he puts videos of vegan Italian cooking with his nonna.
Oh, that is so sweet.
Yeah. I think he has other videos that he does by himself also, but he put out they wrote a book together.
Yes.
And that's kind of, I love that book.
Yes.
I love that book because they talk about traditions, they talk about food, which he's vegan, so he's asked his nonna to help him, create vegan versions of his favorite dishes that he grew up with. And they do that, which is kind of, evolving
Right.
into, from tradition to a new way of cooking the same old
Correct.
foods. So I connect with it because I'm vegetarian. So it's, I'm always looking for good Italian food. My kids love Italian food.
That's very important, being a vegetarian myself. I always was suspicious that foods made by, say, German or Italian or other countries use a lot of animal fat or animal products in there. And especially like you want chicken soup, you want vegetable soup and you have chicken broth in it.
Right.
And I have an issue with that. So I'm always looking for where can I find
Right.
something that is purely vegetarian without any animal
Right.
product in there.
Right.
And this is a good book to refer to
Yeah.
and see what you can do and what are the options.
Yeah. And you see two different generations, kind of talking over traditional food and coming together to this new generation.
Right.
So it's kind of cool. That's why I kind of just wanted to bring attention to that food.
Love it. Love
and the
it.
story that they represent.
Yes.
A beautiful multi-generational
Right.
cookbook,
Right.
essentially.
Right.
So I don't know. How do you feel like when you are with, your family?
Oh my God. When I started, my mother said to me, I want you to taste this and reproduce it. And I'd never been in the kitchen before. And I was like, I don't know where to begin. But I figured it out. Slowly, we figured it out. And she said to me, if your father eats it, then it's okay. It's good. So, and then she coached me, of course, because I looked at these spices and things. I didn't know how to blend them, which she basically taught me how to do that, put it together.
Right.
And eventually I wrote down everything she told me and I have it still today. And when my kids saw it, they said, Mom, why is it in a box? Let's put it together and share it with the rest of the family. And I say, yeah, when I have time. But yes, we do talk about food. My children love to talk about food. And my grandchildren only want to eat what I grew up with. So, because they don't get it from eating elsewhere.
Right.
But they come to me
Right.
to eat the traditional Indian foods that I make.
Yeah. Mom's food is the best, right?
Always. Always.
So that's, I think, everybody, I know there's a few people that are, unfortunately not in that situation where they have these large families, and I'm sensitive to that. And I hope when they watch this, they create their own traditions, for their kids or the next generations, so that this is how they share themselves.
Correct. And I'll tell you a story that my aunt, who just passed away at 103, we would call each other up on every Sunday and discuss recipes, amongst other things. And now that she's gone and I have a question, I cannot pick up that phone and ask, Auntie, what did you do when you made this?
Right.
And I have to go back into my own memory and the conversations I've had with her.
Right.
So it's another way of connecting, even though she's not there with me.
Right. Right.
And that's my big hug.
That's your big hug when you're cooking her recipes.
Correct.
Correct. So I feel that way too. I grew up in a multi-generational family, and my grandparents lived with us, or we lived with my grandparents. And growing up, my grandma, I love her, and God bless her, she's not around anymore. But everything that she taught me, whether it was crafting or knitting or all the things that she knew, that she kind of thought it was good to teach me. She understood exactly, because I'm a creative type. She kind of understood my thirst for learning those things and taught me all the things that she knew, whether it was food, whether it was knitting, whether it was stitching, whether it was embroidery, all of those things.
Correct.
Many people may say, oh, she was just trying to teach you to be a good housewife. But that's, I think she didn't
skills.
Think about it.
Yeah, these are skills that will always stay with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can tell you it's translated into so many different ways of doing things in my life. I love so many different things. When it kind of, I always call it creative angst. So when I feel angsty, I go back to doing one of these things, and it just kind of brings this peace to me, and I feel like it's transformed me into flow state. So I'm not thinking about anything, but just focusing on what I love, what I love doing.
True.
So whether it's cooking, whether it's stitching, whether it's knitting, any of those things.
Right. It's also very meditative.
Correct. So it kind of puts me in a good place.
Correct.
Instantly. So that's kind of what I got from my grandma. My grandfather was full of stories. So whether it's mythology, it's, stories about our family coming out of partition and, how we connect still, going back to those stories. I tell those to my kids.
Right.
My parents, who also, have been with, I wanted to extend the same to my kids. So my parents, kind of spent some time in India and some time with us over here. They lived with me. Now they're, at a stage where I've just told them, stay, live with me. So the bond that they have with my kids is irreplaceable.
That's true.
And I just love it because I can't do that for them just by myself.
Right.
You need the grandparents for that.
Right.
So their connect with food also comes through all of this, So when they come home, they talk about, oh, I feel so good. I feel like it smells like home. So my daughter is in the dorm now, and, every time I wash or you bring something to her, she goes, it smells like home. So what is that smell? Is that hug from the foods that we cook?
Right.
So I feel like that's what we're giving our kids, when we're talking about different traditions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And being open to it.
Right.
Open-minded about it.
Yeah.
To explore.
Right.
To share.
Right.
And to create.
Right. And I also feel, how does a generation that's full of wisdom and experience transfer it to a generation that's living in the information age?
Correct.
And the generation that's living in the information teach the older generation to, bring them into this new phase. So what a beautiful way to
connection.
Connect the two when they are able to have that conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like, it has a lot of value, and I feel we need to really kind of, that this is my whole idea of, why I'm talking about food is because not only it gives you, the health aspect, but also the community that you're looking for. And when you talk to different, people from different cultures, they will tell you the same stories as well. And that's kind of what I want to bring. Something that's common.
True.
Something that binds not just generations, but cultures and communities, creates communities. So I would love to create a community around food where we're talking about different foods, especially when you go to a city like New York.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Like you said, you don't hear the same language twice. There are people from all kinds of places.
Right.
Speaking all kinds of languages.
Right.
And all kinds of foods.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I think that's what's amazing, right? So I think developing a relationship with your food is important,
Correct.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's important because you can then use it as medicine or poison. According to Ayurveda, some foods work as medicine and some foods work as poison. And so if you understand what you're eating, you know you are never going to consume the poison.
Correct.
And you're going to consume the medicine.
Right.
So what do you say, Dr. Pram?
Let's do it.
Balance your mood with food.
Yes.
Eat real food.
Absolutely eat real food. Otherwise, you're going to be one piece of plastic.
That's a hard one. I just want to thank all our viewers. I would encourage you to subscribe
To the podcast.
And you may have good comments and bad comments, and I appreciate both because the fact is that you watched my podcast, and I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.